Welcome back, everybody. This is RGR Football, the Chief in the North Knight. That's Seth Kaiser. You can't hear him right now, but he's doing something over there. It's not Matt Derrick because I had that wrong. But, you know, they can be mistaken for each other. We're going to get into it, and we're going to get into your questions. That's what tonight is about. Glad that you guys are here, and welcome to RGR Football. Welcome back. I think I have the graphics fixed now. That's great.
Hey, that's me.
Welcome, folks. It's Thursday. It is the 15th, and that means you are approximately one complete week away from seeing people in Chiefs uniforms. Rookies and quarterbacks report a week early. I do believe it is the 21st or 22nd. I don't have that confirmed, but it's going to be soon, and we're going to see that. We're going to talk about what their particular fallout is from that Super Bowl. What's driving these players right now as they get into camp and kind of look to restart the whole process. We're going to talk about what Seth's been writing about, which is really interesting. But I want to start real quick by sharing with you a question from a member from one of our biggest supporters that I didn't get to last time. And that has been brought back. Thank you, Ben. This is from the other day, and he wanted to know, are we ready for the rigors of this schedule? Do we have enough quality depth? And I think that's a question not only every year, and thank you, FLDB, by the way, for making sure that I saw that over in the Discord. Members, your Discord invites are either on the way or we're doing an experiment to see if we can get them to you automated. If not, I'll have to reach out to each of you individually, and we'll go from there. But it's a great question because I think across the board, for a two-time Super Bowl participant, you got to feel pretty good about where they're at, don't you?
I do. It's really easy when you focus on the days in, the day in and day out, and the minuscule minutia, there's the word, part of the roster, to actually, in a weird way, be both overly optimistic and overly pessimistic about your depth. And the way that generally seems to play out with fans is that you end up with fan favorites that maybe have never really demonstrated that they can take on a full-time role. People think they can because they've done stuff in limited snaps. An example of that, and it's not an insult to the player, it's just kind of how this works, would be like Byron Pringle. Oh, by the way, yes, Stevie, yet another background, because you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to check it out, people. Look at that beautiful light. If you're wondering, why does Seth look so good? It certainly isn't his haircut because, man, he needs to cut his hair. But no, it was because that's right, Holly. It's time to bring on the juice. So that's why I've got a new background back there. You can see my unlimited supply of buy drinks. Call me buy. Come on. So basically, what you see happen with fans, you end up overly optimistic with guys that have maybe shown they can do some stuff in a limited role, because guys that very few things are more popular than people that have shown a little. Right. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why I'm doing this this series on our young guns, right? Because it's real easy for us to take guys that have flashed a little bit and extrapolate into that. Well, if you just put him on the field full time, he's going to do that constantly. So that's one way that happens when you are just obsessed with the minutia of a team, right? When you know the roster top to bottom. The other side of things is you can tend to be much more aware of issues that every single team in the league has. But they seem so serious when it's your team, when you know everything about them. And that's what I think happens when people are like, well, I don't know, that seventh receiver doesn't look very good to me. It's like, that's true. But that's also something that happens there. I feel pretty good about the depth. I feel much better about the offensive line depth than I did this time last year. The only room I'm a little bit concerned about, it's really not the wide receiver group, because I think the offensive line is going to be the major culminating part of what happens with the offense. And I think people don't realize how little Sammy Watkins was fully healthy the last few years. So losing him, that matters, but not as much as people maybe think. And I still have hope for Mecole Hardman, but that's a whole other ball of wax. The cornerback room, I worry. Yep. Spagnuolo keeps trotting out competent secondaries. and keeps turning guys into good players. So I'm sure it'll happen again. This time next year, we're going to be like, man, that Bo Pete Keys, he's going to be an all-pro, So that's a position group I'm worried about. I don't know about you, but overall, I like the depth.
Yeah, corner would be one of the two that I would point out, as well as the linebacker group, because I think an injury to Hitchens hurts this team in a lot of ways.
I find your lack of faith in Willie Gay Jr. and Nick Bolton disturbing, Ryan, and you deserve to be roasted in the comments.
Proceed.
This is young guys, because Willie Gay hasn't shown he can be a full-time guy. Nick Bolton is definitely that future Mike. That's the plan for him. It's glaringly obvious, but throwing him in there as a rookie would be tough. Even for a guy with his experience, I think he'd do better than most rookies, but that would be incredibly tough.
Yeah, you guys can pin it down now. If Hitchens has to miss a game, the headline of the game plan that week will be "The future is now," because that's exactly what it'll be for Nick Bolton. Thank you for that one, for getting us started, Ben. And I'm sorry I missed your super chat from the other day. Folks, if you want to support the channel, the super chat's the way to do it. It is the easiest, but you can also use the RGR store and get something for it that you can wear around, show your pride, and help us spread the word. Travis, thank you for your super chat. We appreciate it. I'll look for a comment from you down below. And you guys, it's not a Q&A session, so to speak, tonight. But we will get into some topics as we go over what Seth's been writing about, what we're interested in right now at this point in the season. And of course, Ben is here tonight too. So Ben, hit us with another one. Thank you for the support, Ben. Very much appreciated. And you did have a question this time. It is, do you think there's enough? Oh, it is the same question.
People are worried.
Yes, I think Ben is concerned.
Yeah.
But he got a little more specific, and I like this. Is Parks capable of stepping in? Keys, Boodle character, I hope Baker is able to play. I do think that Parks makes this roster.
Yeah.
I think he is the next guy up if any of the top three get hurt.
I think so too. Parks can play. We talked about this a little bit last week. Denver had him all over. I had a chance to watch a few more of his snaps. He played all over. And I mean, it's not like, they didn't bring over Justin Simmons, which would be cool. Man, that guy's good. He bugs me. Like when we play them, I get bothered. I'm like, man, that guy's good. Like at everything.
Go away.
Yeah, if he can knock it off. So the thing with Parks is, he can do a little bit of everything, and he can do it pretty well. Maybe the top end, what you're looking at there is a player that I've always loved since his time in Kansas City and thought that he was criminally underrated while he was there, was Hussein Abdullah, who I thought did all sorts of stuff for them while he was still in Kansas City. He was immensely valuable, and one of the reasons why Bob Sutton's defenses didn't suck for a while. Because that was looking back in time, when you really look at some of the personnel and some of those defenses Sutton had for a few years there, I think that covered up some problems and they could have been better defenses. But Abdullah was a guy, he could do a little bit of everything pretty well. Yep. And you could throw him anywhere pretty well. And that's an unusual thing to do. And I think Parks is a guy that you can do that with. And so he's not going to take Sorensen off the field. That would shock me. They love Dan Sorensen. We talked about this last week. But I think he's definitely capable of stepping in. With the corners, it's anyone's guess.
Yeah. I'm leaning towards Boodle as the UDFA that I think might make it. That might be wishful thinking, just because I saw him do some good things at Nebraska, but in the Big 12, you got to definitely lower your standards, because the level of play at the defensive side of the ball in the Big 12 is not up to par. So that might be some prognostication there, folks. But for you Nebraska fans, stay positive. I think that he has a shot. Baker's the most interesting comment in here to me, because I know I've seen some social media clips of him running and things, cutting even. But I haven't heard anything from the team. I don't know what they're thinking, or if they're even going to let him practice when camp starts. I doubt it, to tell you the truth, but he might be the long shot.
And that is weird, given how, you'd think he'd be a little farther along, but you just haven't heard anything. Like you said, there's a long shot there. His open tabs look like my browsers. Ryan, close down tabs. Man, this is a problem, by the way. My wife and I, we're taking a vacation again this year in December. We just booked it.
Nice.
We go to Florida. It's going to be great. So excited. Shout out Anna Maria Island, which is awesome. If you have a family, go vacation there. They're not even paying me to say that.
Huh.
And she was showing me one of the VRBOs that she was looking at, and she must have had 50 tabs open. And I was like, "Hon, I can't look at this. I can't do it. This is like I'm like shaking. Like, I mean, not literally, but close."
You were thinking about it.
Yeah. And so anyway, with Baker, it's just that's the thing with counting on Baker is we don't know anything about his health situation. And when healthy, it's not like he performed. So it really is. There's a big question mark there. The only reason there's not more of a question mark is because of the competent play that the Chiefs defensive coaches have coaxed out of guys that no one thought would be competent players, especially out of the gate. Several years in a row now, this has happened. We'll see if that trend continues. If it does, they're good to go. If they take a step backwards there, that's problematic.
Yeah. I will work on my browser tabs. I have a lot of research that I do, so easy.
Research before you do this job. That's a fast.
I know, what a concept, right?
Yeah.
I don't know everything off the top of my head, I promise.
I just make lists and hope that people.
At least you have the juice, according to Steve.
I got the juice.
And Anita, you want to see our mod father, Aaron, about the Fantasy Football League. We are going to have an RGR league. Aaron is in charge of it. I don't know anything else beyond that, though. So if the mod father is not in here tonight, I haven't seen him comment yet, but I'm guessing he's either here or he will be here shortly. That will be the way. I'm behind you because I'm trying to look at the questions and super chats, so you're probably more up to date than I am, Seth.
Ryan actually, and this is important that people know this, Ryan actually does the work when we're doing this. I just live here, you know. That's how that feels at the office lately.
Just wait till I'm like, hey, I have to do the broadcast for the Thursday night game. You're going to have to do Chief in the North on your own and watch the panic ensue. Wait, there's buttons?
Yeah, there's buttons here? Wow. Like, it's going to be like a full hour of me just like, huh, what does this do? Whoa, that's cool. What about this? Hey, honey, come look at what I can do. That's going to be – so I hope people are juiced for that content. That's going to be –
oh, see, he worked it in there. See, that's how a professional does it.
That was actually accidental.
No.
Yeah, it's become part of my vernacular now.
You and everybody else. I heard about the piece on Times Hours, by the way.
Yeah, it's spreading like wildfire. I don't know what to tell you. Apparently juicy is maybe I got to lose some weight. I don't know. This is becoming the thing that I'm known for now. Although I like the comic book picture thing of me like going juicy, you know, it's fun.
Okay, so you're good with that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's awesome. It's also made me acutely aware of like, you know, all the things I do on here and how that could end up in like comic book format, which is going to be super fun.
You guys have to see. Stevie's going to do a graphic novel one of these days because he's got it all laid out. It's going to be pretty cool. Thank you for the comment, Stevie. And yes, it is adorable. But you also have another good point. Before we get to what the topic of the week is for you, over at the site, the Substack that you guys have to go to. And I'm actually going to use the real one this time just because I feel like, you know, let's be a little stand up right now. That's where you can find all of Seth's work. I do want to get back to that question first, though, because, and of course, now it just went off the screen because how dare I? Stevie brought up Xavier Howard, and there's this holdout looming that supposedly, from the two people that I've talked to, might actually happen. And I mean, I, for one, given what we just talked about and our lack of faith in the depth, I'm all for this, especially if something happens with one edge rusher that might give some cap relief.
You know, anytime an excellent player is potentially on the trade block, you are always going to be interested. I feel like if they weren't interested in Julio Jones for a second, they're probably not interested in Xavier Howard for a first and more, especially considering the money and all that stuff. However, it's hard to say no to things like that. You know me, I'm a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. I'm big on that. And Howard has proven himself. You know, he got the big contract. Then he played some of the best football of his career. Awesome player. He was the one-handed pick on Mahomes last year, if I recall. On that,
I do believe, yes.
Yeah, that was an unbelievable play. But he's more than that. I mean, he's very consistent. I think he'd be a great fit for the system with the way he plays. But it would take to read Jeremy Green, it would take a haul for X, and he's absolutely right. And it's hard to continue to do things that way. And it's at least somewhat noteworthy that the player we're about to talk about that could potentially lead to some cap relief, not maybe as much as people think, at least immediately. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Steve, for all your hard work on Discord. But that player, Frank Clark, is a guy we're talking about as a potential cap type thing. And obviously there's a lot going on with him right now. He was a player that had been consistent for multiple years. They traded a lot for and had to pay him a lot, which you'd have to do with Xavier Howard. He wants more money, and he's already got a pretty big contract. And so it's just worth noting that there are risks with going that route too, because Clark was supposed to be a sure thing because he had very consistent film for years. Comes to Kansas City, absolutely plays a vital role in them winning a Super Bowl. I'm never going to be sorry that they made that trade. A trade can be, in the end, a bad trade in terms of total return, but still not be a trade I'm sorry they made, because I think it mattered that much. But that's just at least
you got to consider the alternative, right? The alternative was bringing back D Ford. So, yeah.
And just a real quick thing, I've heard people say, like, when they traded for Clark, I actually said I would have been perfectly comfortable with them just keeping Houston, but that was never going to happen. It just wasn't. No. And I don't know, I wouldn't call it an anyone's fault kind of situation, but trust and the relationship there broke down a bit.
Yeah.
And that's why it's kind of funny. I feel like we've gone from overestimating the personal side of all this to like the last 10 years where we kind of underestimate the personal side. That stuff matters. And when you lose some of that trust, and that just makes it very difficult. And while we maybe as fans separate to an extent the front office from the ownership, from the coaching staff, from all that, for players, if a relationship breaks down with one of those groups, it affects everything. So it really wasn't a choice between Houston and Clark. It would have been like D Ford, and Ford didn't stay healthy, hasn't stayed healthy really much. And so I'm comfortable with the route they went. But anyway, all that to circle it back to Xavier Howard, even trading for a really good veteran who's been really consistent, if you got to trade a lot of picks for him and pay a lot of money, you have to hit. Like, it has to be like elite level play. And it's kind of the same thing that hurt them. Or like if you have bad luck with injury, it hurts you way more.
Yeah.
And that's similar with Justin Houston's a great example of that. When they paid him, he was arguably one of the 2 or 3 best defensive players in the NFL. And then he had horrible injury luck and never quite recovered that same explosiveness. And he went from being an elite game wrecker of a player to a very good player. But that's not enough when you pay someone that kind of, you know what I mean? And so that's the risk you take when you trade a bunch of picks, and when you pay someone that much money, they have to be elite, or it costs you so much more. And any kind of bad luck with injury costs you so much more. So there's a risk there with Howard. I mean, I'd go for it, but let's face it, I'd always go for it. I'd kick the tires. That's just me.
It can't hurt to make a call or have him in. See him
never hurt anyone to make a call.
Stevie, you're absolutely right. I guess I just blocked that out. Stevie lives in Iowa, so he knows the Big 10, the Big 12, they overlap. At least I didn't say Big 8. That's what it was back in my day. So I could have done something dumber. Thank you, Stevie. I appreciate that. Honolulu, that's where you're at, isn't it, Jeremy? Aloha and hello. Big Jack KC29, thank you for the super chat. I don't think we've gotten one from you before. I don't recognize your name, so welcome. I myself think the defensive end pass rush on the edge is more of a concern than the CB room, especially with the Frank Clark situation. What in your eyes is the bigger problem? And that's really what this comes down to. And you took a look at all the long term, not just the immediate term issues with what Frank Clark might be facing, couldn't, whatever. So before we get into the details of that, and you can check that at the Substack, does that scenario jump that to a higher concern, the CBs, or you still feel that that's more of an issue?
They have shown an ability to make the best of every cornerback situation, whereas the pass rush stuff, they haven't been able to scheme around that. Spagnuolo has some great blitzing stuff, but once there's no substitute for being able to rush 4. There just isn't. And you saw that against Tampa Bay, where they could get pressure with 4 and the Chiefs couldn't a lot of the time. Now, some of that was schematic. Some of the things Tampa Bay was doing schematically is just hard to get pressure, period, when the ball is out immediately, all that stuff. But it's just not it's hard to scheme around not being able to get pressure. I would just say, in terms of, let's say Clark can't play at all this year, which I don't think is what's going to happen. Right. I would say that they could sign Melvin Ingram, and Ingram, if played at a similar level to Frank Clark last year, probably better, actually. And so I'm not too worried about it in terms of affecting the team overall, because we already had a year where Frank Clark was not Frank Clark, and it didn't torch the defense. So that's why I worry about it a little less. It's kind of similar to worried about replacing Sammy Watkins, because Sammy Watkins wasn't Sammy Watkins last year. And so you're not replacing what this person was 2 years ago. And so I worry about that a little bit less. Now, it does change the ceiling of things, with this idea that maybe Clark could come around, et cetera, return to his level of play that he's shown previously. But I think you can sign Melvin Ingram, and if he stays healthy, he provides similar or superior play to what we saw from Clark last year.
Yeah, given the total volume, I think I'm with you. My question, what do you think about Olivier Vernon? He feels more like a Spags DN to me. Yeah,
I can definitely see it. Ingram, I thought, was weird because he's undersized. Plays really strong, though.
He does.
Plays with tremendous, kind of not as explosive, but similar to how Carl Lawson is an undersized defensive end, but he's just a beast with leverage and functional strength. And Ingram's similar in that regard. So I assume that's why they were fine with it, because he shows all the traits you need to play that DN spot, but he's definitely undersized. I think Vernon makes a ton of sense, and I think he's a good player when he's healthy, and my understanding he is healthy. So, honestly, if I were them, I'd be kicking the tires on both of them, trying to talk him into a 1-year deal. My assumption is both of those guys are still waiting for something a little sweeter to come along than a 1-year deal.
Well, and I'm a little concerned that the Chiefs are going to take the attitude of either of those players have had injury issues.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're going to sign them before the end of week 1 where they don't have to guarantee their salary.
That's definitely a big consideration, especially this time of year, especially guys with injury issues, because sometimes you don't want to be that club that ends up paying for a whole lot of nothing. Because honestly, if that weren't an issue, if you were allowed to do certain things with guarantees, crud, sign both of them, because the defensive end situation is a big question mark right now. And then flip a coin that one of them stays healthy. And if one of them of the two stays healthy, great. If both of them stay healthy, holy crap, even better.
Yeah, hey, NASCAR, here we come, right?
Yeah.
Big Jack, thank you for your super chat. We appreciate the support. And I know there's a couple others sitting out there. We're going to get them here shortly. I am not changing the way I pronounce Kelsey. I shorten everybody's name anyway. I would normally say Kels if I was probably talking to him, I would probably do that. I see no reason to make it formal.
I just wish you'd stop calling me. It's just that seems unnecessary.
It's usually
yeah. Sometimes it's too short, Ryan. I feel like the biggest idiot in the world. I have been just the day job's been swamping me lately, relatively speaking, and so I haven't been as present online. So I see this stuff going around about Kelsey. I'm like, holy crap, really? And now it's I'm pretty sure they're kidding, which, if anything, should just let you know how omnipresent some of the Chiefs stars are on social media. Those dudes are willing to just fiddle around, which means they're searching their names, which means they see what you're tweeting. We already knew that about Tyrann Mathieu. We knew that about him. Yeah. But I think you see that with these guys too. And so I think they're just having fun. It's just ridiculous that how much traction that gained where it was just because Travis Kelce saw it. He was like, this would be funny.
Well, and I saw a bunch of people adding me today about, hey, well, his brother confirmed it. His brother's as much of a clown as he is.
Yeah.
I mean, the two of those guys should be doing a Jackass 3 or whatever it's going to be. You know what I mean? Like pranksters extraordinaire, I think would be a good way to describe them. Josh Fan wanted to say hi. How are you, bud?
Hi, Josh.
Gooch made it. So now we have Dan Kissel and Seth Kissel. Wow, the family's really expanding.
Apparently. Why am I Seth Kissel?
I think it was that term that you used. What was it? Key role that Frank played in the Super Bowl win. I think that sounds eerily familiar to a friend of ours named BJ.
Oh yeah, I love BJ. Good people.
Yeah, good people. Gooch is on the other side of that.
Oh sure. And I think everyone can have arguments about what would have happened. I get that. I tend to focus on the what did happen, and I think he played a pretty important role. That said, if you want to have a conversation about overall play, I think that's a pretty obvious conversation to have. And so I think that's why this reminds me of why like the Alex Smith wars between Chiefs fans became so bitter. And so it was so much worse than when people thought about Matt Castle, because Matt Castle was like, after watching for a while, I was like, no, I think he's just not that good. Whereas with Alex Smith, he was good enough to provide ammunition for one side, and he had enough limitations to provide ammunition for the other side. And I think when you can make an argument from both ways, people get so much more entrenched into those extremes and just start beating each other to death. And that's been the thing with Clark. That's actually one reason why I've been focusing on the young guns instead of him, plus the legal issue thing, where I was like, well, if he gets suspended, I'm going to feel like an idiot for spending 20 hours on that. So it's an interesting conversation to have. I think it also is reflective of the way people overall view things and approach these discussions entirely. I think you can find some consistency with how they view guys like Clark or Alex Smith or things like that. Yeah,
for sure. Shout out to Alex. Thank you from the vlogs. And yes, Gooch, I'm with you. I'm glad you got your jersey. Shout out from the UK, dude. It's like 1 a.m. in the UK, isn't it? So cheers. Have a beer and go to bed. Dang. Yeah. But glad you made it.
Water. Maybe my drink.
Let's see. Gooch said, why are we bringing up Ingram? Isn't Vernon still there? Yep. See, I covered it for you. I knew you were going to go there. And then Gooch said Frank Clark had been Frank Clark in the contract year in Seattle. I think he means since the contract year in Seattle, and that's it. I don't think you've seen that same Frank Clark. He was good in 19. I wouldn't say he was the same as he was in Seattle by any means.
No, he wasn't as good as he was in 18. Yeah, you had a few games where it looked like he was taking over to the same extent, but it wasn't like it was in 18 and 17. He was good in 16 too. He was excellent in 17 and 18. There'll be no Alex slander in the relation. No. Look, I became known as like some kind of Alex Smith apologist. My entire system for charting quarterbacks is in part based around trying to figure out what is and isn't happening to try to determine what narratives about Alex Smith were true. And it's been refined over the years. And I mean, I use it religiously because I think it's a great way to get beyond the box score. I love Alex Smith. It was kind of funny because I became known as like the Alex Smith apologist for years. And then finally, before the 2017 draft, when I said, look, I think this would have been after the Pittsburgh playoff loss, I believe. And that was when I finally said, I think we've seen the ceiling and, what can we do there? And I think a really interesting, like Alex Smith, though, you'll never hear me say a negative word about him as a person. And I don't think anyone else either. Like he is one person. It's kind of similar to Andy Reid in a lot of ways, but you'll find some Reid detractors, I guess. You can't find anyone who has worked with Alex Smith, because now Le'Veon Bell, doesn't like Reid. But,
hey.
But you can't find a soul that has a negative thing to say about Alex Smith, who's like worked with the man, like as a person, all that. But one of the great unknowns will still always be what would have happened if during that really tough stretch in 2017, I know this is off topic, what if, because you remember the Giants game and they had a couple of And at the time, the Chief of the North podcast existed, which I kick around bringing back sometime, and I'm probably not going to. But
yes, please.
It was just nobody needs that in their life.
They're here for you tonight, not me, buddy.
We have this. This is the reincarnated Chief of the North podcast. One of the great all times in Chiefs fanhood. There's a few of them. One is, had Mike Maslowski not gotten hurt in 2003, do they win the Super Bowl? To which the answer is yes. And I will die on this hill. We should talk about this sometime. He was the beating heart of that defense. He was the one making the calls. He went down and it was over. They went from an average defense. You can look at the before and after splits. He went down and they went from an average to maybe slightly below average defense to just the pits. Anyway, sorry. I feel strong about that. But another great all-time for Chiefs Kingdom is what if, there's what if Gannon got kept in, which, come on. Please. And then what if during that struggle, Andy Reid had said, you know what? I think I'm going to try out Pat Mahomes. Would he have been ready by the time the playoffs came around with everyone having no film on him? And so let's unpack this. What do you think, Ryan? I'm curious because this is obviously Mahomes, by his own admission, didn't know as much what he was doing, had some things to work on, but was still obviously freakishly talented. We saw in week 17 his ability to just do insane things on the fly. What if he gets thrown in there 3/4 of the way through the year, and you come into the playoffs time, and no one still has film on him?
I will tell you what I thought that day, and if you guys ever want to see it, you can go back. I think I put it on RGR. I was at Mahomes' first game here in Denver. Me and thank you to the Broncos PR. They let me come down on the field after the game and everything. Broncos PR has been really nice to me. Nothing against Chiefs PR. They don't let bloggers or tubers do that, but Broncos did. And it was, as the players were still leaving, I was still hearing things like, dude, he's really that good. Like you could hear the Broncos players' comments about him. And I do believe if you gave him too much time, it might not have worked out that well. You know what I mean? If you gave him 4 games worth of film, maybe it wouldn't have. But and he just admitted, Pat said earlier this offseason about how, hey, I really wasn't reading defenses till last season. Yeah. And I think they could have gotten it done because he was just so raw and he was just so willing to do whatever it took. I think if you didn't give him 4 full games worth of film, I think it might have worked.
I think that would have been a lot of fun. And you would have probably ended up seeing, who would they have seen in the championship that year? Would it probably Belichick?
That'd be my guess.
Yeah, that would have been so interesting to see, especially hearing Belichick comment on what he's going to do, if there were 3 games of film to do.
Right.
That would have been so fun to watch.
I think it would have been interesting because that would have been Patricia still, which I think was one of the lulls in the defensive output from the Patriots for the last decade. So that might have coincided with a good chance to get the better of them. So I don't know.
They still would have won the Super Bowl in 2003 with Maslowski.
Okay, as long as you're sure. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I don't see your microphone tonight, Seth. Or is that at home? You're not. You're
Holy
at the
crap on a cracker. How do I sound, people?
You sound fine.
Oh.
Sound like you're in an empty room with a bunch of file cabinets.
No, that is.
Oh, wait, you are.
Yeah. That is a complete and total failure on my part. Wow. No wonder. I count on you, Ryan, to protect me from doing stupid things.
Nah. Hey, I'm here to enjoy the ride, buddy.
Ooh, what if Joe Horn was Joe Horn? Sorry, I'm ahead of you. You go ahead.
You are. I'm trying to catch up. I swear to the Lord. It was Von Miller. Yeah, he did, Night Hunter. You're absolutely right. Big Jack, thank you for another super chat. I appreciate that. You guys, if I missed you, thank you very much. I think I got them all. But if Joe Horn was Joe Horn or Andre Rison and Andre Rison in Kansas City, I'm not following it, unfortunately.
In their best iteration of themselves.
Oh, if you got New Orleans Joe Horn
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Man,
Oof.
thanks for the tickets to the gun show, by the way, my friend. That was
Sorry,
Ryan's out here. It's like,
sorry.
I'm stretching a little. Don't mind me.
The gun show's over there.
I wonder if Stevie got to that in a screenshot.
I hope not. Let's not go there.
That is an interesting question. The Chiefs have had some players where you just see things didn't quite overlap the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the Spider-Man era in Kansas City, brief though as it was.
Yeah, it was so surrounded by questionable other things. I mean, that was like the Sammy Parker years, right? Like, wasn't he right after that? Like, I don't know.
It's weird to watch old Chiefs games. Basically, honestly, everything people think of it in terms of pre-Mahomes and post-Mahomes, and they should in a lot of ways. But pre-Andy Reid is interesting because you just see a lot of not hopeless times, but Andy Reid genuinely. I mean, things really changed when Andy Reid came to Kansas City, and there was a slow but steady. Well, actually, it was pretty fast. I mean, they came in first year, made the playoffs, won their first 9 games, and all that. But it's just interesting to see the pre-Andy Reid and the post-Andy Reid era in Kansas City.
I'll tell you this too. You will never be able to convince me. I don't care who it is. It can be Neil Smith. Gunther Cunningham got a raw deal. Gunther Cunningham, if it isn't for the passing of Derek Thomas, Gunther Cunningham is a top 5 defense, a manageable quarterback situation, and probably is the head coach for another 5 years and is successful. I think he is a brilliant defensive mind. I think he got a raw deal, and I'm not getting over it, evidently. I don't know why this is coming up right now.
I was going to give you a hard time. Yeah, I don't know. This super chat got off the rails more than normal, but at least this time about Chiefs-related topics. I'm trying to think, because you're clearly passionate about this. I'm trying to think about a player or a coach that I feel that strongly got a raw deal. And I'm not sure I can think of one. You know who would have been great, since we're just talking just random hypotheticals now? I believe you. I was going to give you a hard time and like tease you about it, but I saw how serious you were on that. And I was like, okay, going to let that go by.
It's all right.
You know who I think about sometimes? Tony Moeaki. I really think he would have been good. He just kept getting hurt. And it wasn't just based on the one catch, guys, I swear. Although that catch was awesome. But I'm trying to think of a player that or player or coach that I'm that convinced got a completely raw deal. And like the difference between like, you know, being really, really great and kind of going down a little bit more in infamy. But I mean, Cunningham, he did get thrown. That was a tough situation there.
Yeah. And I by in no means mean that the organization did anything wrong. I'm just saying, like, karmically, to have that happen when the best player in football is on your roster and then in a moment is not, that there's no way you can prepare for that when you're a defensive minded coach who has to put his faith in others to coach the offense to begin with. So,
right.
I just wanted to get that out, and I apologize for derailing everything here. But.
Oh yes, I know. I hate it when we go down. I hate it when we go down rabbit trails. It's right? Terrible. Holy crap! Yeah, I'm big. This is Adam West Batman references.
Oh, look at that! Bam.
Yeah. Well, holy crap on a cracker! Hey, Holly, good for you. Holly's got the juice. Good for you, Holly. That's
and
awesome.
I'm glad you're in a better spot too, Holly. And for you members, if you missed it, Aaron, the Mod Father minutes have begun. That's Aaron's member series. You can see that, and Holly was all over that meeting. You guys will see more of it. If you want to become a member, make sure you click the join button down there. You can join at all the levels. Draft pick and above, get the videos. Then you get to be the inside with the inside of all the members, including Holly.
Wow, that's a lot of layers.
I know, right? It's like an onion over here. Alex did outduel Breeze in a playoff game. Says
he did. That is a thing that he did.
I will not argue at all.
No. I will always be very fond of Alex Smith there were a lot of things that he brought to the table. The Chiefs were a destitute franchise. And it's easier to acknowledge now that they've won a Super Bowl and now that they're a perennial Super Bowl contender, how bad things were.
Mm-hmm.
They were a joke. Scott Fujita. That's an interesting one of a guy that's like, you see the ceiling there and you're like, hey, what happened? I mean, definitely. I saw someone comment, what if Gannon was Gannon in Kansas City? I would argue that Rich Gannon, based on the limited stuff that we saw, and I think it gets a little bit exaggerated in hindsight. It's not like he was like Mahomes out there, but
are you going to say what I think you're going to say? Say it.
I'm just saying that Gannon, I think, was already Gannon in Kansas City, and I'm not going to say what you want. I've already said the Chiefs would win a Super Bowl with one. They didn't play. By the time we're done, I'm like, Chiefs really ought to have about 10 Super Bowls when you really think about it. Although the offense was a lot better and that defense was great.
Right.
It is one of those situations where I think it was pretty clear. And I was a kid, and it was pretty clear that Rich Gannon was a good quarterback. And like how much better the offense moved with him. And they're like, no, players don't lose their starting spot due to injury. It's like, well, it's not necessarily about injury. It's about they got lucky or the other person got unlucky. Then they came in and played much, much, much better than that person. It's not losing the job due to injury. That's just how it goes.
It's called winning. Let's do that.
It's called winning. That one's going to be – that's obviously an all-timer because, yikes.
So you say you were a kid. I was a dad.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well,
okay.
That's because you're old, Ryan.
I know. I'm fighting this thing. No, that was actually no. I'm not that old. It's okay. Okay.
No, you're not old. I'm not that young.
We're all getting older, bro. Only time wins in the end.
Oh, crud, man. 43 minutes have gone by.
Oh,
we talked about it briefly. The Frank Clark thing.
Yes.
Basically, the long and short of it is this. I don't know if you had questions. bit.ly/Seth really hates money. Minnesota Chiefs fan at Substack.com. I actually collaborated with a fellow prosecutor, Real Bird Law on Twitter. He's got a real name, but because he's a prosecutor and smarter than me, he keeps that name off the internet.
And if he doesn't, he needs to contact me because I believe he's out here. We need to get together. Chiefs fans in Colorado, I'm going to figure out something to do.
Yeah, he is. He's kind of in your neck of the woods. Yeah, good guy. Sharp guy. We wrote about the Frank Clark legal situation there. You can take a look at it. We don't know a lot of the details right now, but there are a lot of things with criminal cases that tend to be cyclical. And so we kind of wrote about what we do know, what the statutes say, and some of the defenses that he might use and how the case might play out. If anyone's interested in it, basically the long and short of it, if I were to tell anyone anything, it's that, yes, he's charged with a felony. That's never a good thing. With the information we have right now, because what really got, when people were breathlessly repeating, he's facing up to 3 years in prison. It's like, look, and the example I used was a fifth degree controlled substance crime here in Minnesota. That has a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. I have literally never seen anyone sentenced to that ever. Right. Ever in hundreds and hundreds of cases. I talked to the guy who handles our drug prosecutions primarily. He's never seen it. The max anyone ever sees in executed time, and this is someone with like a bunch of criminal points with it, is like 23 months.
And can I ask a legal question real quick?
Yeah, I can't guarantee I have the answer, but I might.
Right. But in that situation, like you said, you never see that happen. Do you as prosecutors pass down recommendations, or is that solely based on the judge's determination?
So in the state of Minnesota, we have sentencing guidelines. Okay. And so basically what they do is they almost like have a chart where it's like a grid where it's like, this is the offense, this is the number of criminal points they have, you come to here, that's the presumptive sentence. And the judge has to make explicit findings to go outside of that. Some states are a little more, whatever the judge determines, and then the prosecutor and the defense counsel argue about it. 99% of the time, no one's arguing about sentencing because it's a plea agreement. Because most people plead out. And there's a number of reasons for that. Depending on who you ask, those reasons might vary. But the primary reason is that there's not always a debate as to whether or not someone did something wrong. It's the extent of how much they did and how well I can prove it. And depending on that, there's a sliding scale of what we're willing to give up. It's like, well, it was a pretty heinous thing, but I'm not sure I can prove it. So I'll give a lot of ground here to get some sort of plea. If this was pretty bad and I know I can prove it, then that's where you get to say things like, no, it's the old Godfather too. My offer is this, nothing.
Yes.
And so that's
folks, there's a line of a few good men you got to go listen to. It only matters what I can prove.
It only matters what I can prove. And so that's worth reading. Birdlaw did a great job talking about the potential defenses. Most of these things end up pleading out, and it's going to be a lot of fun. What are you doing?
The drink label. Sorry, I was helping point it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I am doing a bad job with that. Here, hang on, Ryan. You say things now.
Okay. Gooch was telling you that he did cover this discussion in his Rogue Life episodes, folks. If you want to see those, go become a member. That is Gooch After Dark. It is not public consumption at this point, so you got to be a member, but you can do that by joining. And Seth, I think you should do that. I think you will enjoy these.
I thought you were going to tell me how, and then you probably sent it to the wrong email.
I probably did. I'm terrible at that.
No, I will. Gooch, that's a good reminder. I'm like just out here, just barely surviving the day job right now, but I will get there. I don't know. Don't I get honorary membership? You mean I gotta do things? If
YouTube let me give them away, you would already be in there. They don't. There's no capacity for me to actually do that. So unfortunately, no. YouTube, if you're watching, and we lost Seth here for a second, let's get this fixed, okay? I have people, I have staff. We have to take care of this.
I'm here.
Okay, good.
I've got a beautiful new light, but the price I'm paying for it is that I can't be connected by wire. So we're risking wireless here.
Gotcha. Well, then let's keep it short and tight with those sentences guidelines. Where were you going about Frank?
Okay. So where I was going with Frank is that, saying that he's facing 3 years in prison. Now every state does things a little bit different. I agree, Holly. He never does show those long enough.
I'm sorry.
So unless California does things wildly out of bounds with everyone else, and I've looked at a few of the things, I've talked to a few people that know people that practice in the area. Nothing concrete enough for me to like really put a ton of information out there. But the reality is the maximum sentence is not something people sit on low-level felonies. It's just not. And for most low-level felonies, you never sit. You don't sit any actual time. Those fifth-degree possession crimes that I was talking about, where usually what ends up happening is someone gets like a 21-month stayed sentence, and they get put on probation, and maybe they'll do like 15 days probationary jail time. But that's if it's their second or third offense. Their first offense, they get an obligatory stay of adjudication and a chance to keep it off their record. It's hard, depending on the background and stuff, to really sit time. Like you gotta violate probation or something like that on the back end. So the Clark thing, it's not serious. Anytime you're charged with a felony, that's not a good thing. Right. But whether he'll actually sit time over it, that would surprise me. It would surprise me if anyone charged with what he's charged with sat time. And that doesn't have anything to do with him having money or anything like that. It's just the way the criminal justice system works is it's considered better to try to put people on probation and rehabilitate their situation to where it doesn't happen again. And there's a reason for that, because no one wants, everyone going to jail. I don't want that. And that's what I usually tell people. It's like, okay, you did something stupid. Let's deal with it now.
Right.
And he allegedly did something stupid. And I think his attorney, in all likelihood, is probably trying to negotiate some kind of plea agreement that leads to that DA's office not charging the second one. Mm-hmm. But that does give the DA's office a little more leverage to play hardball. So every case is so different. It depends on what kind of defenses they have. So that's kind of a very short kind of primer into what this stuff looks like. It's not the end of the world. I believe his arraignment got continued to October. What I
thought that
is
was
what I thought I'd read today. I saw one person call it a plea hearing. I saw another person call it a continued arraignment. I haven't looked at the public website yet, which is publicly available.
Yeah.
On your website, you can look up the case.
And you can find it over here at Minnesota.
Yes, actually, yeah, I did link to that, didn't I? Man, I thought of everything that day.
Yeah, you guys referenced everything like real research.
Yeah, I know. Well, I clearly drank a buy drink that day.
Right. Let me do this before you go any further. I have to put this on. Dun 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 dun. From 1,000 lakes to 1,000-foot peaks. RGR law. Right.
So now I'm actually curious to see if they've put it up. So I'm going to look this up while you read the.
Okay. That's a very good part. Delmont, that Pat Summerall. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but
Gannon
was Gannon. And what I thought you were going to say earlier, and I'm glad to get Summerall's take on there. Rip Pat. I thought, Seth, earlier you were going to say that Gannon was Gannon until he got with Gruden. And then he all of a sudden changed things. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't say that out loud.
So here's something interesting that I don't know enough about to comment intelligently enough on. This is interesting. When you look up the criminal case summary of Clark's case, it has a case number, this is public information, so I'm not like doing anything here, but which is TA154872. There is a defendant ID 1 and 2 now.
Oh,
which is fascinating. Because there's a Charles Philip Smith, and again, this is public data. Not trying to call anyone out or anything like that, or dox anyone. This is publicly available data. That's what happens when you're charged with a crime. I'm sorry, that's just life. There's a case number with 2 defendant IDs, which is interesting. That would say to me when I look at Mr. Smith's case, he might be charged with something similar.
So that to me reeks of a professional security person that also maybe was unpermitted.
Yeah, let me see. 30605A. Oh, he's charged with a little bit of a different statute. So this is just interesting now that there might be 2 defendants in the case, but it might be 2 completely different, unrelated charges. But that's just kind of interesting to me because that wasn't there yesterday.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And you've been keeping up on this.
This is breaking news. I'm kidding. It's not really breaking news. It's just what I'm noticing. So there is an arraignment/plea hearing that's scheduled for October 4th, 2021. And so what that means is the case is unlikely to be resolved before that time. So I do think Clark starts off the season. The NFL, generally speaking, in a case like this, I don't think this is going to be one that they preemptively suspend him. It's not like a domestic assault or something with a victim.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. Aaron, I think you probably sent it to the wrong email would be my guess.
Well, he followed that up with it's in your Twitter DMs.
Oh,
so there's that. And Stevie, no.
Why would he say? Ryan really loves money. I'm not seeing. So you should know my DMs. If I don't already follow you, it might have gotten lost. I get a lot of DMs. I keep my DMs open, and so maybe
you're crazy.
Maybe email it to me, man. Yeah, no, I try to be available, and sometimes it backfires really badly.
I had to close it down, especially during the draft season. It was not working for me.
I can't say I blame you one bit. But yeah, so that's kind of and so I got sidetracked a little bit here just examining this because that is interesting that there's 2 defendants now, which one thing that does tell us in theory, could be wrong, that there was probably another person in the car with him in this incident as well, which creates an interesting argument regarding possession. But as was pointed out in the article, California, like many other states, more than one person can possess something at the same time under the law, which probably doesn't sit well with some people, but it's just the law. I'm just saying, because otherwise what would happen is you would have like a case where, a vehicle gets pulled over, there's 5 people in the vehicle, and there's this, giant bag of methamphetamine, and they all say, no, it's his, and you can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt whose it is. So that's the reason why possession is construed that way, to avoid the Spider-Man gift defense.
Brought to you by Kaiser, Schmucko, and Steve, our new law firm.
No, it's Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay. I like that. I don't know that Brian Waters should be in the Hall of Fame, Voodoo. That's an interesting question. I could see him being in the Ring of Honor in Kansas City, but I don't know about the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the guards that made the Hall of Fame, Will Shields is a Hall of Fame guard.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Waters, and Brian Waters had a great career in Kansas City. Great player. But there's a difference between Will Shields' career and Brian Waters' career. And I think even Brian Waters would tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, and particularly when he went to New England. He was great. And I would say he was – I can't say he was even with Will Shields. He was very, very close to the output and the performance of Will Shields while he was in Kansas City. He did not fare as well when he left the Chiefs roster. That's what I will say about his career.
Yeah. Yeah, things didn't go as well. I mean, it is what it is. Although he did make the Pro Bowl in New England for that first year. The
first one, right? And then there were 2 ones following where –
Yep, and then things kind of – but there's just – I mean, Will Shields – and you almost have to be at that Shields level to make it as a guard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, especially as a guard. Scott, Richard Sherman is out of the question for everybody. Richard Sherman will not play again. I will tell you that.
I would be absolutely stunned if he did. And one thing, look, I'm sympathetic towards obviously a lot of struggles going on and stuff, but you can't gloss over a DWI. I take those pretty seriously. I mean, I guess I've seen too many. I've gone over too many photos of really bad stuff happening. That essentially the difference between a criminal vehicular homicide and a DWI is luck. That's really the only difference there for the most part, because you can have someone that, you just lucked out that you didn't kill someone when you drove drunk. I have very little patience for drinking and driving. It doesn't mean I hate everyone who's ever done it. It doesn't mean anything like that. It's just a very, very not good thing to do that has hurt a lot of people. And I think that's hopefully he gets some help and gets his stuff kind of back on track because he's struggling. And it does bum me out. Just on a side note, this is a completely unrelated conversation. I hate that 911 calls become publicly available.
Oh.
By their definition, they capture people at their very worst moments. And 911 operators, almost by definition, have to be extremely brusque with people because they got to get information in a very short period of time. And people are generally hysterical when they call 911. So then the operators look heartless. And there was a lot of tweets making around about that.
I will not argue with you in any way, but I will say that Sherman's wife was the more controlled person on that phone call, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I'm not saying that was handled the way it should have been, especially as it progressed, right? The longer the call went, it's like, are you helping or hurting the situation?
Absolutely.
And that's something that should always be asked. But really, I hate hearing 911 calls get made public because you got people at their very worst moments of their life in a lot of situations. And then for the whole world to listen to, that's rough. But hopefully he gets some help. He and his family get things back on track.
Gooch, thank you for the super chat. As always,
yeah, thanks, Gooch.
I forget that you're commenting and that you're super chatting when you do that. So again, thank you. But yeah, you guys, you want to check out the Chief of the North newsletter. There is a lot there.
Well, that's very kind of me. And that means a lot to me coming from Gooch because what I appreciate about what Gooch does is he'll challenge the things that I say. He'll challenge the things that you say. And there's a lot of value in that. There's now that doesn't mean I want everyone to do it because I need my dopamine. I need somebody like, that's a great opinion, Seth. Holy crap. Man, I don't even want to know what that would look like in a screenshot. What I just did,
Stevie, cue it up. Cue it up. It's at 59 minutes exactly, Stevie. You can go get that. Leon, I don't know why you would feel that way. He's a 4th round pick that has upside. Yeah. There's no way from OTA practice to determine whether he's a bust or not.
Yeah, there's no way to tell. And it's hard to bust as a 4th rounder. What percentage of 4th rounders even become average NFL players? like as in ones, like not special teams guy, but I mean average
Right.
players, the percentage is very, very low. And so for me, anytime you get beyond like the second round, my expectations for draft picks are virtually non-existent.
You're a little bit out there. That's a little unrespected, but we're also a little spoiled. L'Jarius Sneed does not happen every year, you guys.
Correct. There are not a lot of L'Jarius Sneed.
Was there an S on that? You see, I see where you were going with that.
No, I was trying to do a good joke. I mean, you know, it's been a long time since I've done the L'Jarius Sneed bit, and I just missed it. You know, there would be more of them if you would get some L'Jarius breed.
You're trying. You're trying. I get it.
The silence. Oh gosh.
This is a family show. Everything I was going to say had words that do not belong on that kind of.
Oh yeah, that I have that happen occasionally, where like I'm like, think of your brand, Seth. No,
right. That is not going to sound good. Replay it 1,000 times. So, good question from Nick though. What do you think about Bucker's future in KC long term? Do you have an opinion at this point?
I think he's got a long future in Kansas City. They locked him up right away. He's got a big leg for kickoffs to where if you want him to boot it out of the end zone, he can. If you want him to hang it up, he can. Now that matters. I know that sounds insane, but that matters.
Yeah.
And he is, as much as the extra point thing, and we talked about this last week, extra points have become a little more stressful and gimme kicks have become a little more stressful. But if someone were like, oh man, game's on the line, you got a 55-yarder to win it, I would feel pretty good about that. And I think you hang on to that. The big moments don't bother him at all.
No.
And that's hard to find, especially. And when you're a Super Bowl contender, I think the analysis shifts a little bit in terms of what's important with a kicker, because you know you're going to have some of those big moments. And he's had them in the regular season, he's had them in the playoffs, and he doesn't wilt from it at all. Mm-hmm. And missing – he can have a game where he missed an extra point and he comes back and he's fine. So guys that can recover from that, there's value in that too. So I right now I think he's on pace to have a very long career in Kansas City.
I would at the very least expect him to be re-signed. For like you said, when it's difficult, he tends to come through.
Right?
Is it a lack of concentration on the gimmies, on the extra points? I don't know.
Right.
But I think that will also resolve in time as he matures and becomes, an older player too. So I don't have any qualms about it.
Yeah. Well, and remember they gave him an extended contract already. So he's in Kansas City through the last year of his deal is 2024.
Oh, okay. That's longer than I thought. I thought it was 23 and he was out, but even better. Scott, I will tell you this. I've had a lot of questions about Mahomes. Like, has he gotten too big for his britches? Well, no, he's the best player in the league, so it's really difficult to do that. But also this comment, if you guys go watch the whole thing,
that fan was being a complete jackass.
Yeah, he was heckling the hell out of him, and
he called
fired
him trash
back
first.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, oh, you trash. Justin Herbert's coming. And so he just kind of fired back something. And for one thing, Mahomes usually thinks about everything before he says it. And he didn't really, because, he said, I'll see it when I believe it, which someone pointed out, if you really think about it, is inspirational as heck.
Right?
It's like, we'll believe it when you see it, or you will see it when you believe it. Yeah, you'll see it when you believe it. There you go. That's inspirational. I'll see it when I believe it. And that's like, hey, yeah. So that's not what he's trying to do. He obviously just mixed it up. But no, that fan was just trash talking. And he wasn't doing it like, oh, hey, Herbert's coming, like fun. He was being a dill hole. And that let me just say, he called him a bum, right? And I would just say, here's advice to Chiefs Kingdom. Have fun with trash talk. Like, have it be friendly and fun. That's way more fun. There are plenty of Broncos fans who follow me, fewer Raiders fans, but there are people that I just trash talk back and forth in a friendly way, to where it's not personal and you can tease them, but like make it fun. Don't be that person that calls a player a bum and like acting like you did something clever. Don't be that guy.
And so, but more importantly, beyond that, I think Mahomes' comment was just in reaction to the guy. I don't know that he even heard Justin's name in particular. I think he was just trying to walk by and get to his next ball and and
right.
He's playing. So
I completely agree. And it like you said, it'd be almost impossible for Mahomes to get too big for his britches because he is the best football player in the world. Yeah. And Michael Jordan knew he was the best basketball player in the world. And what he did, and we all see it, The Last Dance. I'm going to rewatch that,
Watch The Last Dance again.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it again. But what he did was anytime anyone dared to even insinuate otherwise, that's what he grabbed onto. And that's what you have to do when you've clearly reached the best. You should be someone that just grabs on to whatever motivation you can. Because Mahomes otherwise doesn't have anything left to prove.
Yeah. My favorite piece of The Last Dance that I didn't know before was that piece about how he made up about the guy said good game and he took it as an insult. It's like, how in the world do you interpret that?
That's psychotic.
Right?
That is psychotic. That is like, okay, let's all calm down here a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and the Chargers, like, they tweeted, do you hear him now, Mr. That was kind of funny. It was a little sad that they used clips from a Week 17 game. That was a little sad. Have fun with it. Don't take it personally. Make a funny joke about it. Have fun with it. Especially like Chargers fans, like they're not like a rival. Maybe they will be this year. I don't know. But
I'll tell you this: if anybody's going to be in Mahomes' career inside this division, I think it will be the Chargers because I think it is because of Justin Herbert.
Yeah, and I think Herbert can play.
Yeah.
He makes some boneheaded decisions, and there are a lot of he's very talented. He handles pressure well. Got a great arm, but he's got to ease up on the stupid throws.
He'll get there.
If he does
it's
that,
like he was a rookie.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing where his ceiling though is very, very high. Yeah. It's just a matter of the rest of that defense that has given the Chiefs trouble. Keeping that around is going to be important. There's going to be some tough things to do in terms of, the current core that they have. They're kind of in a goofy situation where some of the core that they currently have was built to win around Phil Rivers. Mm-hmm. And so you get some of them aging out or some of them in weird times in contracts. And so what Herbert has to do is be great in order to bridge that gap between those times.
Yeah. And that's it's like trying to make dinner with somebody else's groceries. It's difficult.
Yeah.
You're going to get something that tastes good in one bite and something that's terrible in the other one. What did I miss? Am I behind again? Shoot.
Oh, nothing. I thought that was funny. I did see a comment that I thought was interesting from Jack Kenna saying the Chargers not a rival in the AFC West. Who is the rival then? Who's number one? The Chiefs don't have a rival in the AFC West right now. They just don't. The Raiders give them more trouble than anyone else. And they're not really a rival because it's not like they're going to like knock them out of the playoffs or anything like that. And so that doesn't mean someone can't be this year. I'm not trying to be dismissive because every year, and this is an important thing for people to remember because it comes up in a lot of conversations. Every year is a unique entity. Just because something happened in 2019 doesn't mean that, had these circumstances played themselves out in 2020, it would have been exactly the same. That's not how that works. Every year is different. Every team is a little bit different. And so it's very possible that like the Chargers or the Raiders somehow, maybe the Broncos, are the Chiefs' rival this year. But right now, they don't have one in the AFC West or the AFC. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it takes a bad output. But if the Chiefs stumble, there are a number of teams that could take advantage of that.
Oh, yeah, there are teams that could take advantage of it. But the Chiefs are the boogeyman in the AFC. They are the bad guys. They're the villains of the story. The only reason it's not even bigger story is because Tampa Bay, a team that does scare me for a variety of reasons, beat them. Yeah. And they really don't have a rival in the AFC. The Bills were supposed to be it, or the Ravens, and they have just cleaned their clocks multiple times in a row. So we'll see if that changes, though.
I will tell you one other thing that I have been watching, and you're right. Every team is different every single year. Right. The reason that I'm giving a little more credence to the Chargers this year is because I do think that Herbert and Josh Allen will be the two guys that are mentioned the most with Mahomes in the coming years in terms of competition.
Sure.
And from what I understand, it's not only a new coach in Los Angeles, it's a new head trainer and it's a new team physician. And if those two people can change
time,
right? If they change the inordinate amount of injuries that team goes through every year, they will be the only ones that can compete with the Chiefs.
Absolutely. Yeah, keeping Derwin James healthy.
Mhm.
There are very few defenses, and it's partly because of the existence of Mahomes and Kelsey, because that's only 2 games out of the year. But honestly, if you want to win in the AFC, you probably have to go through Kansas City. Probably. Now, there's always a chance you don't. It's football. Things are weird. But you're talking the AFC Championship game 3 years in a row. That's very unusual. Super Bowl 2 years in a row. It probably goes through Kansas City. And with the Chargers, that does hinge a lot on Derwin James because he alters a lot of what they can do against the Chiefs. I'm curious what Kansas City does about that this time. Like if they know maybe that James might be playing a lot of man on Kelsey, if that alters some of the things that they do, we'll see. But he plays up Kelsey better than anyone I've ever seen.
I have so many ideas. So many ideas. Let him do it. Let him do it. Bait him into it. Please. Okay.
Talk all week about it. Sure.
Yes, I definitely will. We are at 1 hour and 10, folks. We have covered.
Holy crap.
We've covered everything, and I left Gooch's comment up here because no, there was only one Nick Lowry. There will only ever be one Nick Lowry. Nick Lowry. Just to be Martin Lawrence. I'm just going to put it that way. This is where you can find all of Seth's writing. You need to see it because he does put up GIFs. I don't have him doing film on YouTube yet, but I'm going to keep working on him. You can see the GIFs in his writing, so make sure you check that out. And he didn't even say anything.
No, I'm just sitting here. I will not be baited. Remember, we've already established that the moment you let me do one of these on my own, I'm going to be sitting there like the whole time, like, what does this button do?
Right.
And so if the people are here for it, I'm here for it.
That's awesome. Okay, folks, we will get our wish one way or the other. But if you guys would like, sub, and hit the bell notification if you're not a subscriber already. If you want to see the extra videos, Stevie and Gooch and Aaron and the extra things that I do, as well as Dan, and maybe some other things that we have in the cooker, make sure you become a member. Hit that at least rookie level, and you'll make sure that you can see those. We're going to be back on Monday for more Q&A. We have more videos coming. I'm still working on a couple of films as well, so we're very excited about that. Seth, thank you for the time on a Thursday night again.
Hey, this has been a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I look forward to it every week.
Folks, check out the Substack. This is Chief in the North on RGR. We'll catch you next time.
Stay juicy.